Major themes in the Book of Judges. The Book of Judges presents a sobering portrait of Israel's spiritual condition in the generations following Joshua. After the death of Joshua, a new generation arose who did not know the Lord nor the work which he had done for Israel. Set in a time marked by the absence of centralized leadership, Judges reveals a recurring pattern of rebellion, discipline, mercy, and deliverance that underscores both human failure and divine faithfulness. A central theme in Judges is the repeated cycle of disobedience and deliverance. Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served the Baals. In response, the Lord allowed surrounding nations to oppress them. The anger of the Lord was hot against Israel. When the people cried out in distress, the Lord raised up judges who delivered them out of the hand of those who plundered them. This pattern recurs throughout the book, demonstrating both the seriousness of sin and God's readiness to show mercy when his people turn back to him. Closely related to this cycle is the theme of covenant faithfulness. Despite Israel's continual unfaithfulness, God remained committed to his covenant promises. The angel of the Lord declares, "I said, I will never break my covenant with you." God's discipline was corrective rather than destructive, intended to draw his people back to himself. Judges reveals that Israel's survival depended not on their obedience, but on God's unwavering faithfulness. The book also exposes the danger of incomplete obedience. Israel failed to fully drive out the inhabitants of the land, as seen repeatedly in Judges 1 verses 27 to 36. This failure led directly to spiritual compromise, as God warned, "They shall be thorns in your side, and their gods shall be a snare to you." Israel's unwillingness to obey completely resulted in long-term moral and spiritual corruption. Judges further highlights the destructive nature of moral relativism. The book repeatedly emphasizes the absence of righteous authority, concluding with the sobering assessment, "In those days there was no king in Israel, everyone did what was right in his own eyes." This moral autonomy leads to societal chaos, injustice, and violence, particularly in the book's final chapters. Another major theme is God's use of flawed and unlikely leaders. Gideon, overwhelmed by fear and self-doubt, protests, "My clan is the weakest, and I am the least in my father's house," yet God assures him, "Surely I will be with you." Samson, though empowered by the Spirit of the Lord, repeatedly demonstrates moral weakness. These narratives emphasize that deliverance comes not through human strength, but through God's power working through imperfect people. Idolatry is portrayed as a persistent and destructive force throughout Judges. Israel repeatedly abandons the Lord to serve foreign gods. They forsook the Lord and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. The establishment of private shrines and unauthorized priesthoods illustrates how idolatry distorts worship and leads to spiritual confusion. The book makes clear that turning away from the Lord results in both spiritual blindness and national decline. Judges also underscores the urgent need for godly leadership. Although the judges were raised up to deliver Israel, their leadership was temporary and often morally compromised. The repeated statement about the lack of a king highlights the nation's need for righteous and consistent rule. The failures of the judges themselves point beyond human leaders to the necessity of a faithful and enduring ruler. Finally, the book warns of the consequences of failing to pass on the knowledge of God to future generations. Judges 2 verse 10 notes that a generation arose who did not know the Lord, resulting in widespread apostasy. This spiritual forgetfulness led directly to national instability and repeated suffering, underscoring the importance of remembering and teaching God's works. In its entirety, the Book of Judges presents a powerful testimony to both human weakness and divine mercy. Through repeated cycles of failure and deliverance, the book reveals the tragic consequences of rejecting God's rule while affirming his enduring patience and faithfulness. Judges ultimately calls readers to recognize that lasting peace, righteousness, and deliverance are found only under the rule of the Lord.